He is not simply an icon of soul. He is a testament to what a human heart can endure and still sing. The name that traveled on radio waves and into living rooms began as a whisper in cold rooms. A hush carried by a boy who learned early that songs can be shelter. He taught a nation to smile while crying, to let sorrow move like water over stone, to take ache and press it into melody until it gleamed. But the shine came from scars, decades stacked upon decades, storms after storms, the quiet kinds and the public kinds. And still he kept turning what might have broken another man into notes that threaded strangers together in the dark. Now, with years gathered on his shoulders, he faces late chapters whose shadows seem longer than applause, and still the flame holds, steady and low, refusing to go out. Debt, that gentle smile. It has carried weights most will never see. The final miles, they say, can be the hardest. Perhaps the last verses will be the ones that demand the most truth. Fifth, if you have ever felt your own heart steadied by his music, if a single line ever found you at midnight and gave you breath, then know the story continues, not in headlines, but in the quiet, in the resolve, in the way he keeps standing when the wind rises, before the world called him by a name that glowed on marquees. He was simply a child in Detroit, with uncommon eyes and empty pockets, humming to keep from shivering. William Smokey Robinson Jr. arrived in the iron-scented North End on a February day in 1940, into rooms where every square foot had a life in it, and warmth was rationed like bread. William, Sr., came home with hands split from labor. Flossie kept a delicate rhythm in a house that shook with footsteps, and clatter, and laughter that always sounded a little borrowed. As if joy itself needed permission. 11 souls pulled air from the same rooms. Sleep was a negotiation. If you could breathe, you could share a bed. There was always sound, but something deeper was missing. A quiet ache no one named. Winter sneaked through the seams of the walls with knife-cold precision. Nights meant bodies pressed under thin blankets, a barter of heat. A small boy traced shapes on frosted glass and watched his breath fade like a promise that might not hold. He scavenged paper from grocery sacks and dulled pencils down to nubs, writing because the act itself felt like oxygen. Music had not yet become a career, or even a plan. It was survival. He would say it plainly later. It wasn't a dream, it was how he stayed alive. Then, at 10, the fragile balance broke. His mother, the warm pulse in a house of noise, fell ill, and was gone before he grasped the edges of what loss means. Morning arrived and the rooms were rung to still, as if the walls themselves were bracing for footsteps that would never come. Her fragrance lingered for days, then thinned, then vanished. He kept a photograph until the creases consumed it, and even when the paper tore, he carried the space where her face had been. The house quieted but did not soften. Silence gained weight and pressed on lungs. His father remarried, days rearranged themselves, and the boy drifted indoors like a ghost who no longer knew which bed was his. He moved in with an older sister whose hands smelled of soap and worry. He covered her with a blanket when exhaustion caught her upright at the table, and he listened to the kind of quiet that used to hold his mother's humming. In that absence, a new sound began to assemble itself from loneliness, the faint architecture of songs. Detroit had no patience for softness. The factories taught the clock to speak in smoke and thunder. Sid's men came home with grease in their knuckles. Women prayed the roof would keep out one more night of winter. In the middle of it, a boy with hazel eyes odd enough to draw teasing. A shade passed down from somewhere in the family story, learned to turn ridicule into resolve. Some called him strange. He chose to believe the color, let him see differently. While others chased noise, he listened for tone, for the ache in a voice that made pain seem beautiful. Nolan strong, and the Diablo floated through the radio like mercy. Key traced their lines as if they were scripture, and the ache became a map. By 17, he had filled a notebook with more than 100 attempts prayers. Please, small hopes scribbled in pencil. T. No one had heard them, but they were alive. Before those pages would earn a stage, there was a porch and a man named Claude who steadied him a quiet compass in a loud world. Daydreamed through movie plots they couldn't afford to see. Coo. You're my little Smokey Joe, Uncle Claude said, ruffling the boy's hair. A small kindness that fit like armor. Stayed, the name stayed. Sometimes even armor cracks. Hunger crawled through the hours, and he sang at night, not for applause, not even for company, but to confirm he still existed. Outside, the city was cold. Inside, the voice was warm enough to keep him from freezing over. He couldn't know it then, but those phrases born from frost and absence would one day unlock a door for a nation. Ambition met asphalt. The city pulsed with steel. Pin. Beneath that thrum lived a different rhythm, young voices, with more song than money, holding on to melody like rope. He took odd jobs, sweeping floors, moving boxes, carrying tiny wages home and saved for bread and paper. Thought, I didn't want money, he would say later. I wanted a melody that could feed me. A few neighborhood friends gathered and called themselves the Five Chimes. Rehearsals under leaning streetlights left breath hanging in the air like smoke. Broom handles became microphones. Brick walls bounced sound back as if the city was answering. Some nights their shoes softened near barrel fires. Rejection hit harder than hunger. Auditions felt like walking headlong into weather. They climbed buses with one guitar and too much hope, only to be waved out of rooms. Once a suit behind a desk smiled and said, "Cute kids. But this isn't what America sounds like." The walk home was quiet. Snow stitched the streets shut. The notebook, the lifeline, caught damp through the bus window leaks, edges curling with cold. Key kept writing. Renamed the Matadors, they held the dream while other boys peeled away to chase steadier paychecks. Key clutched those pages as if they were a breathing thing. Maybe I was crazy, he'd say later. I kept thinking the next song would be the one. A summer day in 1957 looked ordinary until it wasn't. The room at Brunswick smelled of cigarette ash and varnish and budgets bigger than any of their rent. Floorboards complained under restless feet while men in sharp suits watched without watching. He offered the notebook pencil songs stacked like a fragile city. They sang until the air felt thin. Polite words followed. Thanks, we'll be in touch. Everyone knows that particular chill. Cacher. They began to pack hope back into cases. But one man in the corner remained. Berry Gordy. Not yet a legend, but already another kind of listener, one who tilted his head toward truth. He asked where the songs came from. The answer was small and exact. From things I can't say out loud, Q. It was enough. Light sliced through the dingy pane, as if the room had been waiting on that exact moment. T. Someone finally heard what the boy had been trying to say since winter windows and dull pencils. 2. Soon came a playful reply to a hit that wasn't theirs. Got a job, proof they existed beyond rumors and alleys. A radio wave carried them farther than any bus fare ever had. By 1960, under a new name, The Miracles, the country learned to hum along, to shop around, and a modest label called Motown felt its first million-selling heartbeat. What that single opened was larger than a career. It opened an era. T became not just a voice but an architect, a quiet one, building corridors where other artists could walk and find their own sound. Key wore the new success lightly, almost as if he was afraid loud celebration would scare it away. Cut. He still carried the old notebook, wrinkled now, ink thinning. 2. Remember what hunger sounds like, he said. Soft yet unbreakable, that was the peculiar tensile strength of his sound. He could take a factory town and turn it into a sanctuary, transform a crowd into a congregation without preaching a word. Oof. You've really got a hold on me. Ooh-hoo baby. Baby. The tracks of my tears. Titles that looked simple on paper, but moved like prayers once they left his throat. The more the applause rose, the more he felt the private quiet darken. The audience heard him. Cut. He still struggled to hear himself. Success arrived in a rush, but charged interest. He wrote at a velocity that startled even those who knew his pace. By 1965, 26 top 40 hits bore his fingerprints. And he steadied the sound for others, The Temptations, Mary Wells, Marvin Gaye. Berry Gordy called him Miracle Man. Miracles cost something. He paid with time, sleep, and slivers of peace. He shuttled from studio to rehearsal to stage 2, bus to plane and back again. The country was still divided by ropes and rules, and he sang into rooms that seated people by skin. Still, the music braided aisles together for a few holy minutes. We'd hit towns that wouldn't serve us a meal, he remembered, and leave with the room singing. Then the hotel door closed. The echo evaporated. The loneliness returned, dressed in elegance. By 1968, he was more than a leading man in his own story. He had become a pillar others leaned on. Every artist wanted counsel. Every hit wanted his final ear. Motown ballooned into an empire. Figures on paper proving what bodies already knew. He wrote and wrote, a flood that threatened to erode its own banks. 4,000 songs in a decade is not a statistic, Pret. It is a measure of what the body can be made to endure. She's chased a moving horizon called perfection, only to learn perfection does not love back. Fingers cramped. Dawns arrived with pages scattered like feathers on studio floors. Doctors suggested he slow. Key did not. Forgetting how to write felt too close to forgetting how to breathe. 30 sounded older than it should have when you've been running since 19. By 1970, he was tired, in a way sleep couldn't fix. The miracles were weary. The tours unending. The prayers sounded like echoes of older prayers. He was the poet of love to a generation, a critic said. yet his own heart drifted off key. Mirrors backstage behaved badly. The man in the suit with the practiced smile looked like an impersonation. Charts filled with his work. Still, a hollowness took root. "I thought I was living the dream," he would say. The dream was living me. He planned an exit in 1972, spoke of time with the children, of air and quiet, of ordinary mornings. Farewell shows turned into small floods in the aisles, not because fame was leaving, but because people sensed the weariness in his bones. The stage kept calling. It always does. Quite. It is hard to unlearn what the body has memorized so completely. He smiled and waved and bowed. And somewhere under the silk and the sequins, a man whispered that he needed to hear his own voice, unaccompanied by ovations. Q would leave and then return, and leave again, the dance of a life tethered to sound. But in this telling, the first act is not a victory lap. Q. It is a ledger of what was paid and what was carried forward. In The Boy with the Frostbitten Window, you can already see the man who will outlast eras, not because he is invulnerable, but because he keeps converting pain into something shareable. The secret of endurance isn't hardness, it's tenderness that refuses to die. He did not just survive the gauntlet. He apprenticed himself to sorrow until it began to sing on command. You can hear the Detroit winter in the space between his phrases, the knife-cold air pulling at vowels, the old house's creak tucked inside the quiet of sustained notes. Pew. You can feel Flossie's absence in the way he approaches a last chorus, as if bracing against a door that will not open. K. You can sense William Sr.'s blistered hands in the insistence of his rhythms, labor turned into cadence. Coat. You can hear Uncle Claude's porch in the softness of his falsetto, a kindness that carried across years. You can hear the boys under streetlights in every harmony he built for others. P. And when Berry Gordy's name enters the room, it brings with it the pivot from hoping to being heard, from pencil prayers to studio halos. The Temptations, Mary Wells, Marvin Gaye, when their paths cross his. The sound expands like a lung-catching first light after a long night. The Miracles become not just a group but a frame that holds an era's painting. The hunger never leaves. It transforms into discipline. He kept the notebook. He kept the vows made to the self who had so little. He kept chasing not the trophy or the headline, but the line that told the truth without shattering the listener. He believed the broken can still sing, and that the singing itself can mend the cracks a little. Kuss. And when noise rose to drown, meaning, he learned to retreat to the page until the page threw open a window again. There is a way some artists turn a room, not by force, but by temperature. He'd step to the microphone, and the atmosphere would warm a few degrees, the edges of the evening rounding. He did not bark or demand. He invited. That is its own kind of power. In segregated halls, the invitation sat like a dare, and for 3 minutes at a time, a divided America forgot itself. The miracle was not that the song sold 1 million. Miracle was Bodie's standing at once, ancient instincts to sway and harmonize, defeating a country's learned habits. Later, when the bus took the band out of town and the diner refused them, the earlier chord change still lived in their bones. And maybe that was enough to make another morning possible. He paid for it with solitude. He learned the cost of giving a voice to millions when you have only one throat. T. He learned how the applause grows teeth when it bites the quiet right out of your day. Koand. He learned to be needed by everyone and known by very few. Te. He learned to write when there was nothing left to write, and to keep singing when the song felt like a letter addressed to a stranger. Carry. He learned how to carry a city without letting it crush his ribs. Even miracle workers need somewhere to set their burdens down. He tried to put them on the floor of hotel rooms, on the piano in empty halls after the last crewman left, on the desk in the office where the numbers kept getting taller. P. Tried to hand them to sleep. Sleep would not take them. Key. Tried to hand them to silence. B. Silence handed them back. Kowu. So he returned to the practice that had saved him as a boy. He wrote, Kenna, not always for records, sometimes for breath, sometimes only to capture a sentence before it walked out of the room. The pages were littered with fragments that never wore a melody. Even those were necessary, a ledger of a life paid in lines. He understood, even then, that every era shifts, that what a nation needs from a voice can change while the voice is breathing. T. He studied those shifts without bitterness, like a craftsman checking wood grain before the cut. Kund. He stayed faithful to tenderness when the world wanted spectacle. He kept the door open for others to pass through louder than he ever wished to be. Key. He trusted that the kind of song he wrote best, the ones that looked you in the eye without flinching, would always have a room somewhere, even if the address kept moving. He was not alone, not really. Names gathered around his, some said softly, some shouted by fans. Nolan Strong and the Diablo threaded through his early listening, a model of egg-shaped beauty. Barry Gordy stood by a studio door and heard what others missed, the kind of hearing that builds an industry. The Temptations brought their gravity. Mary Wells brought a clarity. Marvin Gaye brought a courage. Each one threaded a different color into the tapestry. But the loom was his discipline, and the design was his alchemy. How to take what hurts and make it help someone else. The miracles were the first evidence that such alchemy could remake not only a boy's address book, but the sonic map of a country. He did not forget the house with 11 bodies, the way winters made warmth a currency. Q. He did not forget Flousie's perfume, fading from a pillow like a sunset. Koei. He did not forget William Sr.'s stoic silence after the remarriage, a boy's sense of dislocation becoming a man's empathy for the displaced. Tet. He did not forget his sister dozing in a chair, the blanket he tucked around her, a practice piece for a lifetime of tending. Memories like that do not let you lie in your lyrics. Poe. They insist on a particular honesty. You can hear that honesty in the quiver he allowed in certain notes, in the restraint when drama might have sold more. Peace could have turned pain into theater. Key chose to turn it into truth instead. There is a photograph somewhere, if not on paper, then preserved by those who were there, of a small rehearsal space with wires that spark when touched, with a floor that complains when stepped on, with boys in matching suits bought on credit, with a man leafing through a battered notebook as if it were a holy book. That image is the seed from which companies, tours, awards, and anthologies bloom. It is an antidote to any temptation toward self-mythology. See, whenever the world tried to crown him, he could recall that room and the frost and the draft and the way a harmony could make even poverty feel briefly ceremonial. That memory is why his generosity to other voices did not waver. He knew how thin the line is between being overlooked and being heard. He was the pulse and the pen, the steadiness behind other spotlights. When history is written, with neat timelines and bold-faced names, the quiet architectures are often skipped. Not here, here. We name the invisible scaffolding, the late nights when he rearranged someone else's chorus because he heard a better way for the truth to arrive. Cohoed the afternoons, he listened without interrupting because the singer needed to hear her own confession. The mornings he showed up when exhaustion argued for bed. The work behind the work is also the story. Music, when you tell the early life of a man like this, it is tempting to fast forward to the anthems, to allow the familiar to stand in for the real. But the real is this. A Detroit boy learned to braid loss into melody so completely that listeners felt less alone. He carried winter in and turned it into warmth for strangers. He took a house with too many bodies and turned it into songs that made room for millions. Carried a mother he could not keep and turned her absence into a presence in every tender line he ever sang. Wide. He received a name from an uncle and stitched it to his vocation until the two became inseparable. He handed his notebook to a man in a small room and changed the country's sound. The work has always been the same. Take what life hands you, good, bad, and in between, and make it sing in a way that lets someone else breathe easier. That is why, even now, when storms gather, he doesn't raise his voice, he deepens it. Cage. He does not rage against time. He tunes himself to it. Can't. When the next chapter comes, demanding proof, he offers not argument but endurance. Comment 84, or write Rip S. William, Sr., carried the weight of days in his palms, the kind of fatigue that makes a kitchen chair feel like a harbor. He returned from long shifts with the smell of metal on his jacket and the discipline of a man who understands that love sometimes looks like showing up again tomorrow. He did not talk much. Duty spoke for him. In a house where the roof knew every winter by name and the boards memorized each footstep. He was the spine that kept the walls from sagging further. His son watched him, how he accepted the ache, how he exchanged hours for heat, and reddened, learned that endurance can be quiet and still be fierce. The boy would later stand on stages and make tenderness sound easy. But this is where he studied steadiness. A father who clocked in, who bore the cold, who folded pain into the small privacy of a sigh and then moved on. When laughter waned, William Sr. put his shoulder under the day and lifted anyway. The songs that would come decades later held this subtle grammar. Labor is love that forgot to ask for applause. The sun's falsetto may have shimmered, but beneath it lived a rhythm hammered on factory floors, a tempo of grit that never lost time. Comment or write Rip William, Sr. to honor them. Flossie was the soft current through rooms too crowded for softness. She tuned the air with gestures, quiet hands that set a table, a hum that doubled as a prayer, a smile that borrowed light and gave it back. What she kept stitched together was not only meals and laundry and schedules, quote. It was a circle of warmth that made scarcity feel less like a verdict and more like a season. When illness came, It came like a thief of sound. After, the house did not grow silent, Carrie. It rang with a different frequency, the echo of what was missing. The perfume that lingered on a pillow for a handful of mornings became the last stanza of a lullaby. A boy learned how absence can take shape, how a void can have edges, how memory weighs more than furniture. He carried her photograph until the creases became their own map. He carried her absence longer than paper could bear. When he sang to strangers, he left space between lines wide enough for the listener's own losses to step into and feel held. That space began here. Comment or write rip Flossie to honor them. Uncle Claude, the porch philosopher, the giver of names, handed the boy a small shield without realizing it. "You're my little Smokey Joe," he said, half joke, fully blessing, and the sound of it fit. Knaves can be armor, debt. They can also be invitation. This one did both. Under late light, they imagined the stories they could not afford to watch on movie screens. Tunt. And in that imagining, the boy learned a craft more durable than spectacle. How to look at a life with tenderness and shape it into a tale. Claude's gift was not money or introductions. It was recognition, a simple ruffling of hair that said, "I see you." The child, who had been drifting after the center of his family disappeared, felt the ground again. Decades later, the world would know the name, but the contour of it, the human scale. The kindness would always lead back to a man on a porch, naming a future he could not yet see. Comment or write rip Uncle Claude to honor them. Nolan, Strong and the Diablo entered through a small radio and turned the tiny room into a cathedral. The boy's ear leaned toward, ache made beautiful, and he traced each inflection like someone learning scripture by candlelight. Toes. Voices did not simply entertain, they escaped, and he understood escape as a discipline, not running from pain, but guiding it toward harmony until it released something clean. He practiced that discipline for years, sketching devotion on grocery bag scraps, chasing a tone that could carry sorrow without crushing the one who held it. When he later wrote lines that seemed to float and still land true, you could hear Nolan Strong's lesson folded inside. The gentlest note can hold the heaviest thing. Comment or write rip Nolan Strong to honor them. Barry Gordy was the listener who heard the room differently. When others closed notebooks and conversations with polite dismissal, he remained in the corner, tuned like an instrument to possibility. He asked a question that mattered: where do these songs come from? Received an answer, small enough to carry the whole story, from things I can't say out loud. Recognized the substance under the shine and placed a bet, not on glamour, but on truth shaped by craft. What followed? First recordings that felt like doors cracking open. Radio signals multiplying, a label becoming a movement began there. In a humble room that smelled of smoke and varnish and the nerves of young men. He did not engineer a miracle. Koku. He made space for one to be heard. Tick. And when the world mistook the rise for luck, he knew it was labor. When the world called it novelty, he stewarded it into legacy. Comment or write rip Barry Gordy to honor them. The miracles were not a backdrop. They were the first cathedral where that voice learned how to lift and be held. Harmony is a form of trust. You give your line to the air, knowing someone will catch it and return it brighter. In borrowed suits and thin shoes. They practiced until breath became choreography. Those nights under streetlights, with frost talking back from brick, taught them a law of music that no chart could display. Shared hunger sharpens blend. They carried that law into studios and on 2 stages where their microphones sparked and their hearts did not. The country learned their songs as if they'd been waiting for them shop around, turning storefronts and kitchens into dance floors. A million copies proving what every rehearsal already knew. A group can be a lifeboat, especially for a boy who learned too early that home can vanish. Inside their sound, he found a shelter that fame would later imitate, but never quite match. Mary Wells stepped into those rooms with a tone that could cut a crowd's chatter into attentive quiet. When he sat with her music, shaping contours and lifting corners, it was not mere production. It was midwifery, helping a truth arrive in the world with dignity. She carried her part of the era with elegance and a courage that made the songs feel inevitable, as if they discovered themselves in her throat. In the busy halls and the sharper corners of business, she remained a bell of clarity. For him, working beside her confirmed a conviction. The tender path is a strong one, and a love song can be both softness and steel. Comment or rip Mary Wells to honor them. The Temptations brought gravity and glide, the kind of blend that makes a room stand up straighter without being asked. With them, he learned and taught at the same time that a hook can be a handhold for an entire generation, that a bridge can teach a listener how to cross from doubt to desire and back safely. Handed them lines like ropes, and they climbed, and the country climbed with them. Tours multiplied, and the roadmaps grew, creased from use. There was joy in the craft arrangements that snapped into place like a well-built hinge, harmonies that felt both engineered and somehow inevitable. What they built together was not only chart positions, it was a way of moving through hardship with elegance, a blueprint for how to be precise and generous at once. Marvin Gaye was a brother of intent, a man who knew the difference between singing and saying something. In long conversations that stretched into improbable hours, they returned to the question that matters. What is the music for? Not merely attention, not merely acclaim, healing, courage. The night calls that hummed with ideas were not commerce. They were companionship, an exchange of fire that kept both of them warm. Kai urged him toward depth. Key listened when depth answered. When the worst kind of news arrived, violent and senseless, it felt like the room of the era lost its main light. To speak of it too loudly made the loss echo. To speak of it softly kept the human shape intact. In the years after, you could hear a new weight in the gentleness, the knowledge that even brilliance is mortal. Comment or rip Marvin Gaye to honor them. The applause grew, and with it the distance between stage and hotel lamp solitude. Being needed by everyone is its own kind of isolation. Being praised in headlines but unknown in rooms where the lights are off can unstring a heart. He learned to sit with that paradox. Some evenings, rain on glass was the only audience he trusted. He would lay a jacket still warm from spotlights across a chair and watch the city blink. On a table, paper, pen, a cup grown lukewarm, a body overstayed by adrenaline, and a soul trying to arrive. He returned to the sentence like a pilgrim to a shrine. The broken can still sing. What he wrote on those nights may never have found a studio. It found him. Not every line needs vinyl to matter. By the time the decade's middle bell tolled, the ledger in hits contained numbers other artists would frame as destiny. 26 top 40 entries by 1965, a pace that reduces sleep to rumor. Yet the math told only a corner of the truth. Behind each tally lived mornings with eyes that burned, afternoons stolen from meals to fix a verse, evenings landing in one city while the heart was still taxiing from another. He held the anchor position for a label, becoming a lighthouse others took their bearings from him, adjusted their instruments, found the shoreline. In pots look clean from a distance. Up close, they are 1,000 careful choices made by tired people who keep choosing well. Chose and chose and chose, even when the body asked him to stop.